Today's video is a more in-depth look at the exterior remodel of our small home. From a new stone facade, an expanded front porch, and much needed casement windows, to hardscape and landscape. We will also include small details that add to the storybook cottage feel at the end of the video. When it came to the exterior of the house, the first decision was what to do with the facade. The existing vinyl siding was in bad shape and had to be replaced. Neither of us wanted more vinyl siding, and my husband was leaning to brick. Here in Northern Virginia, red brick colonials are probably the most common popular style. It's fine, but did Arlington really need one more red brick colonial? When I suggested stone, a common building material here in the 1700s, Ted got excited. Now that that decision was made, I wanted the house to look like it had been here for 250 years. Our stone is a common locally mined gray stone. When applying a facade, I think it's important to use the material on the front and at least the two sides. Otherwise, it's like a Hollywood backlot set. When viewed from any angle other than straight on, the disconnect with the sides can be distracting. Get the idea? The other design element that was screaming to be fixed was the porch. It was crooked and close to falling off the house, and the two supports were made from plain old 2x4s. The proportion was just wrong, and you approached the door by 3 small steps that you had to go back down in order to open the storm door. I looked at pictures of porches for months before I decided what I wanted. Since there were close to 100 houses like ours in this neighborhood, I also looked at what my neighbors had done. Inspired by a magazine photo and this neighbor's house, I came up with my own design. Having a sloped pitch on 3 sides gave the porch overhang the feel of a mansard roof, a classic 18th century roof style, common in DC. The addition of 4 knee braces gave the porch a definite French cottage style. With the climbing roses in bloom, the knee braces are hard to see, but they really show in the winter. The porch became the springboard for my entire design. The floor of the porch is a composite decking. The columns and other wood trim are made from materials rated for exterior use. The knee braces are Fypon, a product made from urethane foam, lightweight and perfect for decorative exterior use, a special order at Home Depot. All the materials were selected to make maintenance easy. The other design decision inspired by a neighbor was the casement windows. Whenever I drove past this neighbor's house, I always thought it was so cute. It was the windows that really made it stand out. Casement windows are hinged and crank out, as opposed to double hung windows, the most common type of window. Double hung windows have 2 sashes that slide up and down. Double glazed means 2 panes of glass. Our old windows were double glazed, double hung windows, but so old that most of the seals had been broken, meaning condensation was trapped between the 2 panes of glass. You might have noticed that the 2 lower windows are unusual. The tops of the window hold leaded glass that my father made for my previous house. I was thrilled to find the perfect spot for them in my new house. While we were waiting for the custom windows on the top to be completed, the space was covered with plywood. More than one neighbor said something like, Are you making the windows smaller? Now those neighbors are rewarded with sparkling windows at night. And we get sparkling windows all day from the interior. Since we were changing the facade materials, it was not a huge deal to change some window sizes. The smaller window above the original kitchen sink, now in the library, was enlarged to be the same size as the window on the opposite side of the house. And we did eliminate a small upstairs window above the front door. It was not a part of the original house design for a reason. 2 sliding glass doors became banks of windows, and a window in the main floor bedroom became a French door. Those 3 elements, the stone facade, the front porch, and the windows, made up about half the cost of our remodel. If you want to see what we did to the interior, check out some of our other videos. We will provide links at the end. The walkway was a feature we needed to make the house wheelchair accessible. Because of the change in grade and the need for it to be industrial strength, we had the masons who applied the brick facade install the walkway, and it ended up being a beautiful design element. The step-down bricks along the side provide an edge and create the illusion of broad steps. We added 3 steps to the front to access the existing walkway. The porch needed to be at the same level as the interior of the house and large enough for a wheelchair to turn around. And yes, we have a close family member who visits often and is in a wheelchair. We also find the wheelchair ramp super handy for large furniture, appliances, pianos, little old ladies with walkers, heavy wheeled suitcases, strollers, you name it. I predict that in the future, every house will be designed like this. The remaining elements of the hardscape were more flexible in their timeline and something my husband had done on our previous houses. The beginning of the path is stone made of the rejected facade stones, pieces that were too small or of lesser quality for the masons to use on the house. When they were getting ready to haul them away, I spoke up for them. This is the first of multiple patio areas. This one on the side of the house where we keep the grill and a comfy sitting area is generally in the shade because it's on the north side of the house. We removed a small section of the fence here to open up this area. This is the original decking in all its former glory. Can you say future project? This French door was originally the door to the large exterior storage closet. The bank of windows was previously a sliding glass door, keeping the porch from being as usable since you didn't want to block a door with furniture. Redoing the deck and railing is on the back burner for now, but I'm thinking about a glass railing so we have a better view of the garden from the deck and the windows when we're seated at the dining table. As we walk down the path, you can catch a glimpse at the coral bells blooming in the bed at the right, and tucked behind the nandina bushes on the left is a small alcove to give the birds some privacy for bathing. There's a recycled hanging basket that's just been planted with begonias, my go-to flowers in the shade. It'll just take a couple of weeks for it to really fill in. And here are the last of the azaleas. You can tell from the spent blooms how spectacular this was a week ago. And here's some spiderwort that can be found throughout the yard. It's easy to see why some consider it a weed. This is where the facade stone transitions to cut slab stone and used brick. As our project was getting underway, a neighbor was replacing a buckling brick driveway with concrete. When the first of the bricks were stacked at the curb one day, I asked what they planned to do with them. The answer was a shrug, so I offered to haul them away. Every time a pile of bricks was ready, I went over with a wheelbarrow. They were glad for the timely service, and you can guess how we felt. Fun fact, the surface materials Ted used, assorted stones, bricks, and concrete pavers, all were recycled and free. The previous owner had scavenged all sorts of materials and laid down lumpy, narrow paths that randomly went from one material to the next and had muddy gaps, like he just laid down whatever he had and stopped when he ran out. About 95% of what was existing had to be pulled out. You can see how assorted the sizes and shapes of the stone slab were. The yellow Dutch irises are a wonderful splash of color this time of year. The general rule of thumb for a garden path is that it should curve and disappear around a corner, drawing you deeper into the garden to find out what's next. In the back corner of the yard is our largest patio with a dining table and a swing. I'm a bit awed at how Ted incorporated the concrete pavers, pinks and grays, random sizes, shapes, and thicknesses, and artfully combined the hodgepodge of materials in a way I find pleasing. Once we had the patio for the dining spot in place, I decided it was the perfect spot for some foxglove. There's another patio in front of the garden shed with a couple of chairs, a glass-top table, and a bench. And strangely, this is where our home remodel started, the garden shed. Since our interior remodel would eliminate the old exterior storage closet, we had to start here to give us room for gardening equipment and tools. Home improvement stores sell the shed components and installation. The color is satin black by Behr, a nice charcoal that I use on the front door. And lastly, a small patio with a bench and a chair are at the foot of the steps from the main floor bedroom. If you're counting, that's 5 patios, all connected by paths. If you think that is overkill, please notice that we have no grass in the yard. The hardscape is how we tame the plantings that are our backyard. It also makes the yard fun to walk around in and mostly wheelchair fit friendly. Just in case you imagined this as a weekend project, please know it has taken 5 years to get this far, and we still need to install hardscape on the side and back of the garden shed to store 3 trash cans. We also are redoing the smaller paths along the other side of the house. As Ted works on the additional paths, you can tag along for DIY projects and learn exactly how to create pathways that don't buckle and sag. In addition to design tips, Ted will show you how to level the surface, add paving sand, and install the hard materials. Put in the comments if you're really eager to see how he does it. Then maybe it won't take 5 more years to complete the hardscape. Like most things in life, it's the attention to the final details that take an exterior from nice to show-stopping. Shutters are common, but that doesn't make them any less charming. We painted the recycled front shutters, that satin black by Behr, to match the front door in the garden shed. We also added shutters on the side windows and the back door. These large shutters originally surrounded the front door, so the fit is not perfect, but I think they add a nice touch on an otherwise blank space. And they were my favorite price, free. Again, don't neglect the sides of your house, especially when they are seen from the street. And of course, I had to have window boxes on my cottage. These are just the simple, inexpensive troughs lined with cocoa mats. I've learned a couple of things. First, plan on replacing the cocoa mat regularly, since birds like to pick at them for nesting. It helps to take the old matting and stuff scraps of it around the new mats so the birds can easily haul that off instead of destroying your new ones every year. With my trick, I I can easily get 2 to 3 years from each mat. Second, plan on watering daily. I live in a rainy area, so I just need to water when we have no rain or it's really hot. If I lived in a dry area, I would definitely install a drip system. Number 3, use a liquid fertilizer weekly. Flowering annuals are heavy feeders. And 4th, choose the right plants. Calibrachoa, also called million bells or super bells, is my go-to. They grow in full and part sun, come in a variety of colors, bloom like crazy, and best of all, they don't mind getting dry. Even watering daily, the cocoa mat allows the soil to dry out. If they wilt, a good drink will perk them right up. It's a weird name. Write it down. You want these. Calibrachoa. Next is the jewelry for my house. A custom address plaque. I chose one with a little fleur-de-lis, but they have loads of choices. I found it online at wayfair.com. You select the style you want, give them your address, numbers, and street name, and they send you a metal plaque unique to your home. I had seen them on other homes and expected them to be pricey, but they start at $30 for the numbers only and go up to $90 for the fancier one. Mine was a mid-range. I will put a link in the description if you're interested. Totally recommend this. I had an old concrete plaque I picked up at Tuesday morning, probably 30 years ago. It adds a bit of balance to the porch. The urns were a gift from a friend who said she couldn't keep anything alive in them. They are metal and get scorching hot in the direct sun. Fortunately, the porch is shady, except for when the sun is going down. These are little evergreen plants that I picked up at Home Depot several Christmases ago. You know, those little trees and shiny red wrapping with a tacky little bow for $8 or $10 each. I keep them trimmed so they don't get too big. Give them a few flowers in the spring and pine cones, fairy lights, and ribbons for the holidays. Super easy to care for and always look good. When we first bought the house, we both said the chain link fence must go, but it's still here. What happened is that I realized several of my favorite plants would die if I removed that ugly fence. Do you know anybody that grows clethra? I will share a picture when it blooms. And this rose is beautiful. So the fence had to stay. Part of it was galvanized and part was rusted, so I decided to make the entire thing look rusted. A little brown paint and I was in business. I think rust is the next up-and-coming trend. Wheelchair accessible houses and rust are in my crystal ball. I have some fun items on the deck, much of which was thrifted. Whenever I find something at Goodwill that's interesting and will stand up to the weather, I snag it. If the color's lousy, I put a little chalk paint on it. The garden shed has a window box with coleus since it never receives direct sun. I hung a couple of tin sconces. Next to the Goodwill table and 2 chairs I found on the curb, I have a light-colored urn with a begonia, so it will show in this dark space. Throughout the yard, I have a bird bath, large pots with boxwoods and hollies, and small statues. And the yard is filled with the most amazing collection of plants that provide an ever-changing scene of flowers and beautiful plants. A quick story. The previous owner was deceased, and the people who inherited the house told us at closing that they considered just turning the entire yard under and rolling out sod. I'm a pretty good poker player, so I said something like, I think there's some good plants left. I did not want to call attention to the fact that the yard was a priceless collection. Even 7 years on, the garden is a constant source of delight. We garden in Zone 7B in Northern Virginia. Our yard has bright shade with very little direct sun. The following photos were taken on May 21st. At the end of all our videos, we share the date the pictures were taken and identify the plants to the best of our knowledge. Anything we planted will be marked as such. Everything else was Carl's garden. Remember, the most creative solutions and the best stories begin with the biggest challenges. See you next time.